Okay, so OneDrive, first of all. So most people have been using OneDrive for quite some time, or should have been anyway. You normally have your little icon down on your task tray, down near your system clock, and you're probably used to seeing the files and folders in some kind of your desktop view. And you know if it's a OneDrive location, because up here you'll have the OneDrive icon, and often you'll have the green tick to say that it's synchronized, or the two blue arrows showing that synchronization is in progress. And generally this is the stuff that you've got locally saved as well. So if you're off the network, you can access these files without needing a network connection. And then when you reconnect to a network, it will synchronize any changes you've made to those files up to the OneDrive. You can share from this part with colleagues through OneDrive. Just right mouse click on any of the items on here, and then you can choose the share option that's got the OneDrive icon. So just to make sure it's that share with the OneDrive icon, not this one a bit further down that's share with, because that's using the native Windows share functionality, and that doesn't work. So share using the OneDrive icon. That'll just bring up a little pop-up that you're used to seeing from the SharePoint or OneDrive folders, and then you can share through here. So you can choose who you want to share with, so specific people, or just you want to reshare the link with people that already have access. Anybody in Thomas Cook with the link, anybody in your organization with the link can have access to that. And then you can also toggle on or off editing of that as well. So once you choose that setting, depending on which one you choose, you might need to pop in some email addresses in. It uses the global address list, and then you can add a message to those people and then send that, and they'll get a notification in Outlook. And then you as the sender will often get a confirmed receipt that somebody's accessed the file when you've shared it with them as well. So that's worth bearing in mind as well. The other thing that you can do, I'm going to jump into View Online, because I don't think many people use this often, and there's a couple of useful tips in here around OneDrive sharing. So by default, anything you create in your OneDrive library is private to you. So you can see here, there's a sharing column, and you can see this private. So by default, everything that you create is private, unless you set up to share that file or that folder. So for example, this folder up here called Pictures, I've shared, most likely with John Nuttall. So if I click on this shared hyperlink, it's going to bring up, and it's actually I've shared it with JIT. And it's a link that provides access to everybody. So I could send this link to everybody on this call, and they'd have access to it because I've set that up with that link. But you can quickly see where it's shared. And if you want to stop sharing, you can choose to stop sharing. Got a question, anyone? Okay. But sometimes it's a bit, laborious to kind of go into each individual folder and file to find out what you've shared. There's a little section over here on the left called Shared, and when you click on that, it will show you what you have had shared with you and what is shared by you. So I'm just going to jump to the Shared by You tab, and this is going to show everything, once it refreshes, everything that I have shared from my OneDrive. And you can see its individual files. It's telling me where the location of that particular file is, and it's telling me the last activity on that file. So it's quite a good way to find what you have shared out. So if you're suddenly in a panic that maybe you've shared something, or you just want to check if something has been shared, this is a good way to come and look, and you can do the search function within here as well. And then the other option is what's been shared with you. So anything that's been shared, not just from somebody's OneDrive, but what's been shared from a SharePoint site that you wouldn't have full access to. So if there's another team that has a SharePoint site and you don't have access to that SharePoint site, but specific files or folders have been shared, again, that will show up here. And again, you can see its particular folders or files, who has shared that file with you, and what the last activity was on that particular file or folder.
And so look how busy I am.
I know, at the top.
Yeah.
So at the top, this is a new one. So this is going to link in quite nicely with Delve. But the popular around me, it uses the connections that you have in Office 365, and it based on the people that you interact with, often based on meetings or chat or emails, or if you're collaborating on certain files, it places a kind of a ranking on your relationship with that person, and the more collaboration you do with that person, the more it will start showing particular files that they are working on that it thinks may be of interest, which is kind of bringing on the delve pieces of function there.
Grant, could you just go back? How did you flick from the Windows style view to the online view? Sorry,
just down on the OneDrive icon. There's a view online.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The other way as well is in the actual folder. You can, when you right mouse click on one of them, you do have the view online option as well, just underneath that OneDrive share option. So you can click that and it'll take you to that particular folder as well.
Thank you.
So that's kind of roughly all I was going to sort of talk about on OneDrive, just this sharing piece, because I think we've been using for OneDrive for quite some time now, but I think we've only been really using it as a personal document store with a little bit of sharing, and after quite some time that you might feel that sharing's got out of control, but this is a good way to come back and get that control back in place, so you know what you have shared and you can rescind that those permissions or lock them down as required. So any quick questions around any of the content on OneDrive for that?
Yeah, so I'm probably don't use it quite as extensively as you. So on the previous view that you went back to for Peter's question, so strangely enough, mine looks a bit like that, but there's none of those green ticks or anything on any of my folders.
Yeah, so I think that's something we've had before. It's to do with a particular setting on the local machine itself.
Oh, right. Okay. So that view that you've got, have you got it through clicking the OneDrive Thomas Cook within your favourites? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. And if you want to do any of that sharing stuff, do you have to go into the other mode?
No, you can do it from here. So like I say, you can just right click on any of the files or folders and then just use that share with the OneDrive icon next to it.
Okay.
And then it will give you that share panel.
Yes, because I must admit I've only ever worked in that kind of view rather than the 365 one. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, I think this is sort of naturally the faster one to use because we're used to working more in this kind of traditional Windows Explorer view than an online cloud view.
Yeah, thank you.
And then the only other thing I was going to briefly mention actually was, if I just go back up to the files on my OneDrive, and I'm just going to snap that to the left side of the screen and bring this up and snap that to the right side of the screen. There's some folders on here that aren't appearing in this local synced view. So for example, there's this not synced folder, and that's because I've purposely chosen not to sync certain files and folders down to my local machine. So you can configure OneDrive across a number of different devices, and you might want to only sync down certain pieces of information. So to do that, you just go down to the OneDrive icon. There's many different ways to do multiple things in here, and just bring up that menu. This is the easiest way I find. Open More, and in the Settings, and then you've got the in the Account tab that it opens on default. It's showing that you are syncing. I'm syncing with one location. You could be syncing with multiple different OneDrive locations, and you can choose the folders that you want to sync. So then this is bringing up the view of all the things that exist in my OneDrive, and you can see that they match on this side in a slightly different order. But then I can tick or check or uncheck the ones I want to have synced down to my local machine. It could be that I want to restrict that because of local storage, or I just don't want to be able to have certain information on my local device, maybe from a security compliance perspective. But this allows you to choose whether or not you want to sync specific pieces, or if you want to sync everything or unsync everything. So that's the kind of the quick recap on OneDrive. I'm now going to jump over into Delve. And just bring my notes up on the other screen, because even though I'm not an expert yet in Delve. So again, from your Office 365 portal, I've just gone into all apps, and then you can see Delve here. The Microsoft wording, get personal insights and relevant information based on who you work with and what you work on. And when you open up Delve, it's going to drop you into the home view, and it looks quite scary to begin with. It's basically showing you files and documentation that you have the rights to see. So the first thing I just want to point out is, information is safe and secure in Delve. There's nothing stored in Delve. Just to point that out first of all, Delve is kind of like a looking a window into all the different places you can store information across 365. So it's looking on SharePoint sites, it's looking into OneDrive where you've had things shared with you. It's looking in your OneDrive as well. It's looking at anything that's potentially in O365 mailboxes, your own mailbox, and any mailboxes that you have access to. And if you've got delegated rights to a particular person's mailbox, again, you can see all of that data as well. So don't panic that because you can see something that might be sensitive or shouldn't be widely available, that everybody else can see it. You're only allowed to see what the permissions are for those particular files and folders. And you can't change the permissions in Delve. Delve doesn't change the permissions. Delve doesn't have the ability to change permissions. If you wanted to change the permissions on a particular file, for example, this file here, you click on the more options and it says who can see this. And when you click on that who can see this, it's going to take you to the Office 365 application where that file is stored, and it will bring up the manage permissions dialog box for that particular file or folder. So that's the first thing I just want to point out, because we have had a few people that have access to very sensitive information in the past, panicking that the entire organization can see that, and that's not the case. It's only, you can only see the information that you have the permissions to see. So kind of the concept for Delve really is the I think the issue now is we've got so much information in so many different places and we never know where it is or how to get to it. So the idea of Delve, like I said, is that kind of window across all of the different areas within there. So it allows you to connect to that information. And also it's all about, collaboration is the buzzword for all of this tools and the O365. So it's trying to encourage you to collaborate, because it's showing you things that you have the access to and the rights to, but you might not know exist. If you think about people's OneDrive folders or SharePoint sites, they are structured in the way that makes sense to them. So if Team A and Team B, they may structure their files in a slightly different way to each other, but it makes sense to them as their own teams. And then you want to come along and you're struggling to find where, that doesn't make sense. Why aren't there meetings, the minutes of meeting in that particular location, or why are they somewhere else? This allows, this tries to break through those barriers and allow you to find that information quite easily. And it suggests things to you as well. It suggests things based on how many views a particular file's had, or how close you work with that person or that individual or part of that team. So it's trying to show you things that it thinks are relevant to what you're working on. And as you go through your working life, the people and the projects that you work on change over the weeks and the months and the years. So it's constantly reassessing the relationships that you're having with those people. So you might collaborate quite closely with your project team for 6 months or a year, and then move to another project team. So it will naturally start to see that you no longer have meetings with those people, so you're not having chat messages with those people or emails with those people, and it's a new group of people you're interacting with. So it will start to bring up to the surface the files and folders that those individuals are working on. It's not just about documentation and information, it's also about people. So one of the things that we were quite keen to start working on was the ability to search for experts in the organization. So I'm just going to jump onto the profile part. So on the sort of top left, there's the me section, and that's your profile. So you can search for anybody that exists within the organization, and effectively on this sort of left panel, there's a couple of areas that you can update. So there's the bio, the about me section. So you can put a little bit of information in there about you. I just put a couple of brief sentences, kind of my history with Thomas Cook, what my involvement was. So anybody that perhaps doesn't know me, but it's suggesting that I might be a useful contact or we're collaborating on stuff, at least it can see my background. And then you can update projects and you can update skills. And again, these are keyword search terms. So you can pop information in there, and some of the advice from Microsoft as part of the digital champions and the adoption work is to put in if you are a digital champion, and then people could search in Delve to find somebody with those keywords and ask them about various things. And no different to any of the champion networks. So champion networks for communication or product knowledge or particular projects or rollout, anything like that, you can put that in there as well.
Just on the organisation down the bottom, I can see, I can look at mine actually, and it still says I report to people who aren't here anymore. Is that coming from AD, or is that coming from somewhere else? Do you know?
That's a good question.
It's AD.
It is AD.
AD, yeah.
Okay. So I didn't think we had this in AD, but there you go.
It's where you go in.
Only,
you can go in and put in
who
you report to, can't you? And who are your members of your. And then people need to make sure that they've put in who they report to, and then all of your team will show in the organisation. Yeah.
The problem is, Catherine, we didn't really use AD properly.
No,
it was for workstations and objects and users. And had we used it properly, all of this would have just propagated through naturally.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that mine's correct. That was all. If it was coming from AD, but it is from AD.
Yeah.
I don't have that on mine.
Ah, you haven't updated your ID then.
Oh,
your AD. Yeah.
And I think
no, I have to.
Each organisation will be different in the way that you can. You could update certain information in AD through some of the tools that we had, but within the 365 tool, when it's not, in its purest form, you are able to change certain fields and elements in there. So that is one of the things that you can go through and change. And the only reason I'm showing as reporting into John Nuttall is because my previous line manager's gone, and some of the training things that we were doing, I needed an active on-site line manager to show some of the tools that we're working through. So we only changed that relatively recently. But yeah, each organisation will be able to set that differently. But yeah, at the back end, I thought it was AD that was the kind of the master data store for that. But yeah, different organisations will allow you to manage your data in different ways.
It's still not clear to me why you've got it and some other people haven't, though.
It's probably because you haven't got a manager in your Active Directory entry.
He's special.
If you go and you can edit it and put one in, and then that should start populating.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, it's a different tool here that we used, so you'd have to use the AD Directory Updater tool.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think that has been switched off.
I think we decommed it. I think.
Too late. Sorry.
And I think that's the kind of the key as well from a collaboration point of view in organisations, especially enterprise size organisations. There's thousands of people. How do you find somebody that might be an expert? You'd have to rely on the network of knowing people. This kind of helps break down those barriers, because you could come in here and you could say, do you know what? I'm looking for somebody with skills and service readiness. So you could put that in the search term at the top, and it's going to start to show you people that have that as a skill in there. So I think one of the things that would be really good moving forwards is if any organisations you move to are using this, you can go in and update those skills so that it will help people find you in those organisations and the skills that you have.
This is what Grant Retail were going to use. So Retail had plans to use Delve for all of their SMEs across the retail network. So everybody was going to update, their information in Delve to enable people to find experts in certain things. So they'd got really, comprehensive plans about how they were going to use all of these collaboration tools to help the retail network with what they were doing.
Yeah, that's right. So if you were trying to find somebody that's an expert in Tunisia or in cruising the bed,
exactly.
you could use that search term and connect with them.
Yeah.
And then once you found that individual, again, it will bring up this page. So for example, let me just click on, let's click on John. He's always a good active person. So when I've searched and found somebody, it's going to show me any documentation that I have the rights to see that person has created or modified, and then all the different ways that I could contact that person. It's then a quick glance at what their diary availability is looking like, so whether or not now's a good time to send them a quick ping to get in touch. And then again, it's I think it's then showing me the people that are, in that sort of working relationship with John, who's close to John in a working relationship. So I might be able to go, I don't know John myself, but I know Lee Gray, so I could quickly ping Lee Gray, and so I'm thinking about asking John a question about cruising around Tunisia. Is that a good idea? Oh no, I wouldn't cruise around Tunisia.
I certainly wouldn't do it with John. No.
Oh, thanks. And then one of the items down here is there's a blog entry. So this does allow you to create blog posts and share them up. So again, this is another way for people to share and collaborate with their experiences, their skills, what blogging's all about, really. So again, it's another feature. I think we had the digital IT blogging page somewhere else, but we've got something that we had here that was internal that you could use as well for sharing that information. And it can be a bit daunting. So on the home screen, oh my goodness, there are rows and rows and rows of information that it says this might be useful, that might be important, this could be, beneficial information to you. And it's across SharePoint sites, and there could be public SharePoint sites that's got thousands of documents on. And again, now, I said it's a good way to help manage that information. All of a sudden you can feel a bit overwhelmed or you're struggling to find things, but you can organize that information because you can favorite them. So you've got the bookmark icon here. So you can favorite that particular document, and then that will save that in your favorites area up in the top left here. But the other thing you can do is you can create boards. That's the name of them, so I'm not going to call them anything else, but boards. Think about them, the way I'm trying to think about them is like an old-fashioned cork pin board, where you're pinning documentation onto that cork pin board, and you can name that board a particular topic. So I've called this one a decommission board, and I've pinned a couple of documents to that. Boards are open to everyone. So the first thing to sort of really highlight here is don't call a board something sensitive. Don't call a board how to reduce the headcount of the organization, how to manage somebody, how to, the name of the board, is visible to everybody. The content of the board is visible to the people that have the rights to those documents. So this decommission board, everybody will be able to find in Delve, and pretty much everybody on this call should be able to see the 2 documents I've saved here because they are in the IT collaboration team. But I could pin something from my personal OneDrive to this board that I could see, but nobody else could. So boards are a really good way of organizing and collating and staying on top of that information. And it's about that collaboration piece again, because, going back to that, team A and team B, they do things in their own ways that are similar but different. Each team member could pin the right things to that board for that particular piece of work or that ongoing delivery, or that, you could have a board for new joiners, or a board for people that are looking to step up into a management role, and there's useful information that might help them. It's information that's all within the O365 organization. You can't pin a link to an external website, but you can have a document that has got those external links and that kind of stuff in there as well.
How did you add the board? Sorry, I can't.
I didn't show you how to do that.
Well, you probably did. I might have missed it.
No, I didn't. It's fine. This is the board icon. So manage boards.
There.
So on a document,
okay.
Once you click on that, it then says what board you want to add it to.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it does start to, if you've got previous ones, that you just highlight those when you start typing them in. But you can, you can start to create any boards that you really want to.
And so if I, say I went in and started looking at decommissioning, you've already got a board, but these boards are common.
Yep.
So it would just add that to the same board.
The same board, I believe so. Yeah, because we've not really used boards here. I don't know. So I mean, try tagging something and adding it to the decommission.
Yeah. Okay.
I've spelt it with 2 M's and 2 S's because we seem to have different ways of spelling decommission in the IT collaboration team.
Okay, so if I add something else, okay, yep, and we'll see if it add to board decommissioning.
I've just called it decommission.
Decommission.
And I'm just going to jump into that board. There you go. So I can see there's some things in there as well.
So the IBM Melody. Okay.
Yeah. I think somebody else has been adding things as well. So yeah, and I can see, again, I've not played with boards too much, but I can see this has been added to the board today. So, you know, it's showing, you can see when things are getting added into there as well. So that's, again, another way to collaborate. And there's a link here as well. So you can send a link to the board to people. So if you've collaborated, curated some content and you want to share that with other people, you can send an email link to them as well. And then the favorites as well. I'm just going to jump into favorites. So favorites puts your boards in there as well. So that's a way to also keep on top of which boards you've got, because I imagine if you're, you know, collaborating very well, you could have lots of different boards across your working career.
Okay, and you can see when a document has already been added to a board. You can see how many boards it's on by the blue, goes blue and has a number 1 next to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that right? So that's
that's
right.
Yeah.
To one board. So you know it's on a board somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of creating a new board.
So I've just added this to another. Yeah. So yeah, that's the count for the number of boards that the files are on.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
Do you remove it the same way? I wonder.
I'm just wondering. I think you can manage the boards and then you can remove the tag.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're all learning together.
There we go. Cool. It's mostly intuitive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And effectively, you know, so that's kind of Delve in a very, you know, high level nutshell. It does also share videos that have been uploaded to the, I think at the time of writing, this was the Office 365 video portal, which I think perhaps has now been renamed to Stream. So if you're using the video content on here as well, this will start to show video content and any links from Yammer. So I know some people might be aware of Yammer. It's kind of Facebook for work, LinkedIn for work, probably is the better way for Microsoft to describe it. But, you know, it's that social media style of connecting with data on Yammer, completely different thing. But again, information that's on Yammer and on Stream would also appear in here as well if that's something that's been actively used in your organization. And that's kind of, I thought I could talk a bit longer about Delve, but you can ask a question.
Can I ask a question? Ben,
yeah.
Thanks. Okay, so let's say I've got a skill. I added a skill to me. I updated my profile and I added a skill, which is lunch. So how do I find out who in the organization has got that skill, for example? Will it work? Because it brought up documents. Because I did I also added decommissioning, and then it just brought up the documents with decommissioning.
So I think in my haste, I typed lunch and then clicked press enter. But I think when you're on this section here and you type it in, you can search people.
I'll search people. Okay.
Yeah.
So
have you spelled lunch like the English way? Just to check, first of all. There's no R's in there.
Do you think there's an Australian way to spell lunch?
It's just an easy one, wasn't it? It might take a bit of time to replicate through. That's the only thing I'm thinking there.
So maybe some other people can add lunch to their profile, and let's see how many people have a lunch skill.
And you can change. There's a filter, so you can change it from people to documents or all result types, because I imagine that as things progress, they will allow you to refine down. The other way perhaps is
I'll search people or show all.
Let's see if we. I mean, you could probably search geese, because John's got geese or gist. Let's prove that this does work.
Yeah. Now. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've searched gist, and I've got people that have got.
Okay. Gist on their skills. Okay. Cool.
I'm assuming that's why it's showing me these people. It doesn't seem that's the case.
No.
I've added lunch to me.
Yeah, that might take a. So I just did a geese search and it's brought up John Nuttall and geese.pmo, which is a email address.
Yeah, so you can see it's bringing up geese for John because it's got a project
listed
there. Yeah.
Oh, it's a project, but not a skill.
It
so
should,
if we do, what's one of his other skills? What skills?
365 adoption. Yeah, so it's bringing
okay. There's 36. I just put up 365. Either word.
Yeah, and on John, it's got the 365. Yeah, so that is. I was going to say that is one of the things I found is that the search is quite a basic search. You can't put anything in quotes to search for specific phrases. You can't say and or, you can't tell it to ignore certain words. It literally does search every single word that you enter as a separate individual string. So for example, Thomas Cook project, and if I search people, it's just going to look at those 3 separate words.
Yeah, which is everyone pretty much.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's, I imagine that's going to be something that Microsoft would look to improve as time goes on, because I think the search function is the same across all of its cloud products. So when you're on OneDrive or SharePoint, it's still searching those individual words, rather than you being able to put down project manager, for example, pop that in quotes.
And theoretically, it's only then returning. So if I do a search all, it's only going to return things that I have access to. So
yes, correct.
Yeah.
In terms of the documentation, yeah. So you say, I put project manager in quotes there to say that's the specific phrase I want, but you can see here it's found somebody that's got project and manager as 2 separate words. So a very quick whistle stop tour of Delve. I mean, it doesn't set, again, it's one of these really tricky how to make it, cool and sexy. It's a search tool for a bunch of other things. I found it really useful in terms of doing the decommissioning close down searches, because it searches all of my SharePoint sites, searches all of documentation that's up on any of the SharePoint sites. So if I was, say, looking for some information about SAP, when I search for SAP, and I just say documents, it starts to show me lots of information. I can then try and add HLD, and it should, the things that come up to the top should be things that that relationships piece where I was talking about. It should be showing me things where, if I've never worked with somebody and never had any interactions with them, never sent them an email or chat, anything they've created should appear lower down in the search results. It's the things where I've interacted with people more often, they should appear higher up. So it's kind of important to make sure you are using Delve to try and search for documentation. That's kind of what my takeaway would be, is if you're trying to search for something and you don't know where it is, but you know it exists, Delve is probably the best place. Whereas if you know it's on a particular SharePoint site, you're best to go to that SharePoint site and just search within that area. But if, as part of the analysis work that we've been doing and discovery, we know that we may have some documentation somewhere, but we don't know where, and a lot of people don't have access to the same sources. So it's useful to use Delve as that sort of first search point. And then I guess just, takeaways in terms of Delve is update your profile, and update your profile regularly. So every sort of 4 to 6 months, I'd say, probably go into your profile, add any new projects that you've been working on, any new skills that you've acquired, or maybe you've advanced your skills from sort of beginner to an intermediate or an advanced, to help other people to understand what, who our SMEs are within the organization. And then also, even if you're not using, even if you don't need to search for documentation, even if you don't feel like you need to collaborate with people, it's useful to come onto Delve just to have a look at what it's suggesting as might be useful, because kind of anecdotal evidence is, I was on Delve about 6 to 8 months ago, and I found a document that somebody was working on as part of a piece of project work, and I would have never known that we were working on that piece of documentation unless I'd have just randomly been looking at Delve that particular day. And it then led to us having a conversation to say, I can see you're creating some analysis around this piece of work for this project. That's quite interesting, because we've been struggling to get some information from this from the suppliers. I've had a look and I can see some information in there. Where are you getting it from? And it just led to that conversation that would have ordinarily never have happened, because it's not somebody that I would ordinarily be talking to on a sort of a week-to-week basis. I wouldn't have even perhaps thought that they were working or involved in that particular piece of work, but Delve did sort of bring to the top that document, because it obviously, through the way that the relationships work and what it thinks is an important piece of documentation, it did bring that up towards the top of the kind of popular documents section. So it is worth regularly visiting Delve and having a look on there, just to see, not to see what other people are up to as such, but to see what other people are up to. So I think that's kind of everything I had to say on Delve in terms of kind of an overview. I'm just going to switch off the recording, and then we can go into a deeper dive on Q&A.